Hi, today we're at Melrose Plantation here in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and I'm going to go in and take a tour of the big house and the grounds. And Spike and Guard are going to wait outside for me in the comfort of the air-conditioned van. So let me hand Spike over to you, and I'm going to go in and find out about Melrose Plantation. All I know about it is that it is the home place of Clementine Hunter, a famous folk artist here in Louisiana, and I'm going to go in and find out more. So come on in, find out about Melrose Plantation with me. Let's go.
Have a fun tour.
Thanks. Bye, Spike. Bye, buddy. Bye, Guard.
I'm getting a cookbook, don't ask me why.
Because you go that cookbook.
That's exactly correct.
I do
And
too.
and I have a
I have a
bookshelf
wall
full of
full.
them that I've got to get rid of.
Yeah, I do too.
I bet they have a bunch of synthetic stuff.
Isn't that in between size that I like? Here we go, here we go. Miles south of the city of Natchitoches, which was founded in 1714 by Louis Jacques de Saint Denis. And if you follow me, I'm going to try to take all the driest route. It's kind of, we're in a very low-lying area here. And you always stay on the pathway. Now, during that time period, all of this was a wild territory being vied for by two superpowers. To the west was Spanish Texas, and to the east was French colonial Louisiana. And the French are getting nervous about a Spanish insurrection, so they decide to build a fort in Natchitoches, Fort Saint Jean-Baptiste, and Jacques becomes commandant at the fort. Now, while there, he does own slaves. And we're going to stop right around here. And in 1742, a female child is born into his household. Her name is Marie Therese Quan Quan. Marie Therese is her baptized name. Quan Quan is a nickname that her family and friends give her. 1744, in La Rochelle, France, a male child is born, and his name is Claude Thomas Pierre Metier. 1767, he lands in New Orleans and catches a boat, comes up a river to Natchitoches, where he meets Jacques Arreau, who takes him to the fort, and there he meets Marie Therese Quan Quan, who is now the slave of Jacques Arreau's daughter, Madame de Soto. So Pierre makes an arrangement with Marie Therese and Madame de Soto to lease Marie Therese. Unfortunately, he has to lease her at this time because he does not have enough money to buy her freedom. He will eventually buy her freedom, their 10 children's freedom, and the 5 slaves that they must own freedom. Now, I did say must own. So when Marie Therese receives the land, she and Pierre come down here and clear the land. They have no children to help them. The community's not built up, so there's no workers here. Natchitoches is too far for travel back and forth every day. The only alternative is slavery, and they free those slaves as soon as they are able to. Now, I do want to point out this is a National Historic Landmark. This means that Melrose Plantation is not only important to Natchitoches Parish and the state of Louisiana, but to the United States of America. And the reason for this is one of the few plantations to be owned and operated by free people of color. You'll notice it says Yucca Plantation. Well, that's wrong, because this is Melrose Plantation. Yucca is attributed to one of the artists that was here during the artist colony time, and his name was Francois Mignon. He wakes up one day and decides that everything out here needs a name. So he just went around willy-nilly naming everything, and it stuck because he was such a fabulous storyteller. And it stuck up until 1974. But it is Melrose Plantation, and that's attributed to the Irishman James Henry. Even though he was Irish, he dearly loved Scotland, and in particular Melrose Abbey. So he names the plantation after his beloved Melrose Abbey. So we're going to walk towards Yucca House. And this will be the first homestead that Louis Métayer will build. It is a cypress beam buissage house. The cypress was here on the property. Buissage is a mixture of Spanish moss and clay. Harvested the clay from Cane River, come back, pulled the moss out of the trees, mixed it all up, formed these little bricks, and placed them in between the cypress beams. And when we go around back, I will show you exactly how the walls of Yucca House were formed. Excuse me just a moment. And earlier I forgot to mention that since Marie-Therese and Pierre are down here clearing the land, it's their eldest son Louis who builds the 4 buildings that I pointed out earlier. But poor Louis, he had a gambling problem. So the relatives said that they were no longer going to bail him out and that he'd have to sell the plantation. So he sells to 2 brothers, the Herzog brothers, and they own it pre and post Civil War. But those are financially difficult times also, and they're forced to sell the plantation. And they sell to the Irishman James Henry, and that's how James gets the plantation. Sorry about that little mix up there. So I'm going to speed up to Cammie Henry's time. Now, unfortunately, Cammie's husband, J.H., is going to die at a relatively young age, and that leaves Cammie down here all alone with 8 children. So Cammie decides to start an artist colony, and she invites artists from all over the world to come and spend a couple of weeks here to hone their craft, free room and board. And they start showing up. So Cammie and the 8 kids are in the big house. She starts converting the outbuildings into housing, and this would have been the male housing. So I'm going to go through a couple of particular artists that would have resided in each of these rooms. This room is attributed to the ceramicist and the writer Francois Mignon, who I mentioned earlier. Now, Francois was a real character. And as I said earlier, Cammie invites everyone to come and stay a couple of weeks to hone their craft. Well, Francois comes and stays 32 years. He is the dinner guest that would never leave. And after everyone is dead and gone, we find out that Francois is not exactly the man he says he was. His name was Frank Minna, and he was from New York City. So he basically conned the plantation and the parish. But he does redeem himself. Were it not for Francois Mignon promoting Clementine Hunter's paintings, she may not have become America's premier 20th century folk artist. So he did redeem himself, and we owe him a debt of gratitude. I just don't think that maybe he liked the man he was and was ahead of his time in switching his identity. So we're coming down to the next room. And this room was inhabited by a very famous writer of the times by the name of Lyle Saxon. During this time period, Lyle was writing for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans. Now, Lyle loved the plantation just as much as Francois did, but Lyle didn't stay here consecutively for 18 years. Lyle came about once a year for 18 years. Now, he loved it so much he actually had his New Orleans apartment furniture put on a boat and sent upriver so he could be more comfortable, and that's what we have in here today. Now, there is a legend surrounding Lyle Saxon and Cammie Henry. Since Cammie's giving all the artists free room and board, she had one very simple rule. all the artists had to have supper in the big house, and you had to tell Cammie what you had been working on that day, or you found your bags packed outside your room, and you had to go back to wherever it is you came from. So legend has it that Lyle hadn't spoken up in several days. He's getting worried. Cammie locks him in the room until he writes. No, that's not what happened. What Cammie does do, though, is she starts meeting all his New Orleans friends at the plantation main gate and telling them, no, you cannot come in. Lyle hadn't written a word, and you have to go back to New Orleans. Well, that was not an easy task during that time period. So Lyle hears about this, and he self-imprisons himself for 4 days, after which time he emerges having written the great American novel, Children of Strangers, about Creole culture here along Cane River. Now, Cammie was a taskmaster, but she got excellent results from all the artists. So moving down to this room, and this room is a lot more primitive than the other two rooms. This room was inhabited by the last slave to be born and die on the plantation. His name is Mr. Israel Suddeth. Mr. Suddeth did have his freedom, but he asked the mistress of the plantation if he and his wife Jane could die here, and he was told, of course you can, and this would have been what they decided. So we're going to walk around back, and again, if you follow me, I'm going to try to take you the driest route.
What kind of art did Mr. Suddeth, was he a painter?
Suddeth, no, he was the last slave to be born.
Oh, okay, and he was just
Yeah.
a slave. Okay, I thought he said he was
Now,
an
as
artist
I
as well.
said, that it was Marie Therese Quanquan who received the Spanish land grant for approximately 1,000 acres. It was unusual enough for a woman to receive a Spanish land grant at that time, much less a woman of color. And some say that Marie Therese receives this directly from the King of Spain. But we do not have enough documentation to totally confirm it or totally deny it. So we're waiting on one more piece of paper to sway us one way or the other. Now, in 1970, the last Henry heirs have had it with plantation life. They want to move on to modern times, so they sell the plantation. And they sell to Southland Management Company. And all they want are all the pecan orchards, which they still work to this day, but they want to bring down all the buildings. So, with some very gentle persuasion from many Natchitoches women, they make a very generous donation to APHN, and that's how we're able to show you the plantation today. Now, if you come and stand in this corner, look inside this room, to your right, you'll see the way the buissage walls of the Yucca House were formed. Now, cypress and buissage are both impervious to insects, mold, rot, and mildew. So it's pretty much the perfect construction material. The only thing that can bring buissage down is a flood. And as you can see, we're in a very low-lying area. And in 1830, Cane River, which is right across the street, was a tributary of the Red River. So Louis is getting concerned about flooding, bringing down the buissage house. So 1830, he starts construction on the big house. What he completes in 1833 is a traditional raised Louisiana two-room cottage. But poor Louis, he didn't know that in 1834, the red would naturally change its course and fear of flood was gone forever. But we're eternally grateful that he went ahead and built the big house, because as you're going to see, it's rather magnificent. Now, if you come down here and stand in front of this door and look at the far wall, you'll see a completed cypress beam and buissage wall that has not been whitewashed. And that's all that's ever been done to the interior and the exterior of Yucca House. Now, in Cammie Henry's lifetime, she was very insistent that every child on the plantation have an education and a religious upbringing. Cammie was a school teacher, and she taught out in the parish for 2 years, and then she formed a one-room classroom in the plantation store across the street, and she converted this little room into a chapel of worship for everyone here on the plantation. I think it's a sweet
Beautiful.
little chapel. And that's the original stained glass. We haven't lost too many panes over the years. I think it's pretty good.
Okay, the clear ones are the ones that were lost.
Yeah.
They blend in with it, and that's good that you did it clear. Then you know which ones you lost.
Correct. So we're going to walk to the African house, and again, try to stay behind me because it's really squishy.
Okay.
Now, as I said, it is Francois Mignon who wakes up and names everything. So, he figures since this was a plantation with slaves, that this must be an African structure. But he was wrong. And had he been the Frenchman that he says he was, he would have known that this is a rural French storeroom structure. Now, the walls are 14 inches thick, made with brick from Cane River. Again, they'd have gone across the street, harvested the clay, put them in molds out on the lawn, and allowed the sun to bake them. Now, the roof line is such so that the wind, rain, and sun never hit the cash crop being stored up above. During Louis' time, cash crop would have been indigo and tobacco. Cotton is not king in northwest Louisiana until after the war, and in 1887, coming in J.H., began planting all the pecan orchards, and this becomes one of the state of Louisiana's largest pecan plantations at that time. Now, when Louis builds the African house, these two bottom doors would not have been here. The only entrance would have been the door up above, and Louis would have to bring a ladder in and out each and every day. And the reason for this is, again, it was wild territory. He did not want wild animals or thieves getting at the cash crop being stored up above.
Here is the big house at Melrose Plantation. No photography is allowed in the house, but I'll show you as much as the exterior as I can. The two turret buildings or additions on the ends were added later, and they were the children's bedrooms. There's a lot of live oaks in the yard. Here is the Melrose Plantation house from the side. You'll notice there's some work going on, restoring the trees. Some trees were lost due to the recent hurricane. This is the Yucca House. When Melrose Plantation was an artist colony, a lot of artists that came here to stay and work on their art, they stayed in this building here. I think there were 3 apartments in here for artists. Really beautiful, beautiful building. Let's look inside one of the, this is my favorite room here. This is just beautiful, I think. Nice high porch here. It's hot today, but the breeze under here is really kind of pleasant. And there's the bell ringing. I guess that's a dinner bell. Someone's calling us to dinner. I hope. I can only wish. Here's another room. This is more of a bedroom. Oh, let's get the chain out of the way. There we go. Just very inviting rooms with high ceilings. The walls are whitewashed. This is the African house. Actually, it's modeled after a French storehouse type building where they kept crops on the second floor, and originally there were no doors on the first floor, and there were no doors because they didn't want anybody to get in and take the crops, but the doors were added later on. It's a cute little building. Let's see what this is. This is the Hambone Art Studio. This is a real cute little cottage. Hambone Art. Let's walk up on the porch. Look at that. Hambone is made with different pieces of wood, and they're all fashioned to look like docks, and someone's sitting on each one of them fishing. It's real clever. And here it tells you about Hambone. He's a self-taught Creole Choctaw who grew up in the Bayou country of Louisiana. There's an example of his work. And we can't see inside, but there is a lot of his art in there. You can enjoy the porch. And there is the big house here at Magnolia Plantation from the rear. I think behind, those might be crepe myrtle trees, or if they are, they're huge. Many of the trees here are very old, so a lot of them are overgrown, but it looks like they're taking care of them, trying to trim them. They also have some restroom facilities here for us, which are in keeping with the style of the plantation. I'm going to take a peek inside the ladies' room. Let's see. Okay. Yes. It looks like a fully functioning restroom. Wow. The door isn't as fully functioning though. I'm afraid it's going to fall apart, so I'm going to close it back up. But actually, it was a very beautiful restroom in there. Here it is. This is Clementine Hunter's home and studio. Originally it was over on Highway 119, but they moved it over here and I suppose restored it to some extent for us all to enjoy. She lived here, I think, until the last 3 years of her life. And Clementine Hunter passed away at the age of 101. So this house is where she completed all of her wonderful art. Let's take a look at the sign. Yeah. This was her home from 1954 to 1977. In 1939, she completed her first painting on a window shade, inspired by the artists around here in the artist colony. And early on, she sold her artwork for as little as 25 cents to a few dollars. And she could charge you just 50 cents for a tour of paintings in her cottage. And she passed away in 1988. Wow. Let's take a closer look at her cottage. Yep. 50 cents to look. Wow. Are we able to go in? Let's see, I think so. Yeah, let's go inside. Okay. How exciting. So they said they left it unfurnished because they wanted to just showcase her art. And here's some boards telling about different things about her art. Here shows the hoeing and picking of the cotton. Over here, hauling and ginning the cotton. Pecan picking. That was Melrose's second most important crop after cotton. Making cane syrup and hog killing. And also picking figs. They did figs here. Wash day and chopping wood. Through this door here is the studio, her studio where she painted. There's her table, and she mixed her paint on maybe that very same board. If not a board, this board is just like what she mixed her paint on. I understand that she liked to keep the heat running too. She would keep a little fire in this iron stove because she was a little tiny woman and I think she was cold quite a bit. So she wanted to stay warm. Another interesting fact is the wallpaper was recreated. It's the exact wallpaper that was originally in this room. It's just a reproduction of it. Look, something Clementine Hunter and myself have in common. She was a Chihuahua lover. That's so sweet. And she admired Martin Luther King Jr. And here's John Kennedy. Also, some of the awards she received. From the Chamber of Commerce, from the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity for her contribution to all mankind. She was honored by President Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. I like this. She never left her home more than 100 miles. So she was invited to the White House by Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, and she declined, stating, "If Jimmy Carter wants to see me, he knows where I am." And she received an honorary Doctor of Fine Arts degree from Northwestern State University. There she is. Here's some more examples of her art. She liked zinnias. That's another thing we have in common. I like zinnias too. They are so easy to grow. You plant them one year and then for the next several years, they'll just come back on their own each spring. They reseed. So zinnias are fine flowers. And then here they show she showed all the work going on at the plantation, but now she's devoted a lot of her art to showing the recreation and play. Watermelon eating, dancing, the juke joint down the road. I understand she lived across the street from this juke joint. This cottage was across the street from the juke joint before it was moved here to the plantation. So she probably got a little irritated sometimes with the loud music and the occasional gunshots. But it's an incredible insight into just everyday life. Fishing and hunting. And social gatherings, a birthday party. Hello, you're not bothering me. Thank you though. No problem. So that was her little cottage. What is this building? I love the roof line on this building. It's got a flair to it. Let's walk around and see what. Ooh, it's very wet here today. We had a nice big rainstorm. There's our van. We were allowed to spend the night here. And there's my two favorite people. Spike and Guard. Hey, buddy. Oh, buddy, come on over here and get your feet muddy. Hey, I'm doing a little more videoing.
Okay.
That is the Folk Museum.
There's a sign on the back there.
On the back? Well, yeah, let's go. I'm gonna go see what that says. I'll meet up with you outside in a second here. Oh, the Bayou Folk Museum. This is the home of Kate Chopin, renowned writer of Creole short stories set in famed Cane River country. Best known for Bayou Folk and A Night in Arcady. Home built in the early 1800s by Alex Coultier on Spanish land grant number B 1701. and it's locked, but that is her home from 1880 to 1883. So let's maneuver our way through the standing water here. We had a big rainstorm last night. I want to get over and see this big chicken over here. Maybe that's the chicken that Clementine Hunter painted in many of her paintings, because she did have some very large chickens in some of her paintings. Oh, well, hold on, I'm gonna go around a different way. It's too wet this way. Okay, I found a better path to go. It was really a lot of standing water over there to my left. Just want to see this big chicken. Yes, that chicken must have been the model for some of Clementine Hunter's paintings. And here comes a cat. Hello, little cat. You're just a kitten. Oh my, just a kitten. Somebody's been cutting up some pieces of wood. Looks like they're going to make a path out of those. That's a good purpose. Oh, so one more peek at the chicken here. I think he's a cardboard chicken. A lot of him's cardboard. Yep, the feathers are cardboard. The beak is cardboard. I think he's a good-looking cardboard chicken. Rooster, maybe. That might be a rooster, actually. And here is an old bale of cotton. It's seen better days, but I'm glad it's still here for us to see. Here's my little tour guide, the kitten. Cute little kitty. This is another view of the big house at Melrose Plantation. If you'd like to see inside the big house or some of the other buildings here, you need to come and take the tour. You need to come and visit here in Natchitoches, Louisiana. It's right on the Cane River. There's a lot of other things to see here in town. This is where they filmed Steel Magnolias. They have the St. Augustine Catholic Church that was in the movie, and it's a very historic place. We're going to go visit that soon. And I'll give you a little secret. Our tour guide has a personal history with this house. Her mother was the character Wheezy in the movie Steel Magnolias. And she visited this magnolia plantation several times with her father, or maybe many times. He was a physician, and she would make house calls with him here when she was just a little girl. So I highly recommend you come and take the tour. You will love it. It was the most informative and enjoyable tour today. It's just really a beautiful place. Listen to the birds. Punctuated by the sound of people just walking around having a good time, seeing all the sights here. An occasional fly or bee buzzing around your head. It's really great here.